Hello there. It's currently October 2025. I'm J.A.A. Purves, and for all prospective clients who would like to know, I'll introduce myself. First of all, I graduated from George Mason University School of Law in Arlington, Virginia in 2006. It's now known as the Antonin Scalia Law School. I chose that law school because they were one of the only law schools in the country that had a robust, in-depth focus on both law and economics. I began my legal career working in the Washington, D.C. area. Then I moved back to California, where I am originally from. Counting internships from both before and during law school, as of the year 2025, I've been working in law offices, law firms, and courtrooms for more than 20 years. I am a lawyer who considers myself to be a continuous student of history and of finance. I've always loved history. Starting from a young age, I've read more history books over the years than I can count. I remember deciding to become a lawyer after reading too many Alexander Hamilton and Abraham Lincoln biographies, and that was back in the 1990s. I believe that no lawyer can truly be educated without a sound knowledge of history. Our history is fundamental to how our law has been shaped and developed over the centuries, and it is not possible to understand our laws and our legal system without in-depth understanding of the context in which they developed, and without understanding how our laws really constitute a part of the inheritance we have received from past generations. As to economics and finance, I have learned that besides sound budgeting, tax planning, and savings disciplines, one of the most important personal finance practices is to understand how both the market and investment in the market truly works. It is an unfortunate part of our news cycle and our culture that average, everyday people are often encouraged to invest in the latest hot stocks and trendy mutual funds. Far too many financial advisors tell their clients they can beat the stock market and get a higher return on investments. The problem with always chasing the most recent and popular investment is that it is a guaranteed taking of a sell low and buy high strategy. What too many people don't understand is that attempting to take what they think is a buy low and sell high strategy is only going to be pursued by those who think they can beat the stock market average. Historically, it has been demonstrated countless times that you are much better off thinking big picture, capturing the stock market average, and playing the long game, thereby reducing the costs and taxes of actively managed investment accounts. As a philosophy of finance, long-term investment strategies also fundamentally affect how you make your own legal and estate planning decisions. And this is a consequence of a certain kind of life philosophy and set of principles. As a lawyer, if I can help both families and individuals plan for the long term, think about how to invest in their local communities and, most important, relationships, make lifelong commitments, and build up those things that they love over time because they know them to be good, then I will be doing that which I know I ought to be doing, and I consider that my duty as a lawyer. Second, I'm a United States Army veteran of the Iraq War. I was sent for 1 year-long tour of duty at the very end of my last year of law school in 2006. My experience in the Army and in serving with my brothers and sisters of the U.S. military in war has instilled in me what can be called the military values or even virtues, including a strong sense of personal discipline and a profound love and respect for all those men and women who make the sacrifice of giving us their service to defend our families, our homes, and our liberties. One way that this has shaped me is that, after being shot at with bullets and after seeing the road blown up more times than I can count, I find intimidation tactics, wild accusations, bullying, misrepresentations, and other forms of aggression by opposing attorneys in the courtroom much less threatening. It's as if the volume dial on threats with words has been turned down on low after my experience serving in war. Another way this has shaped me, having experienced and witnessed firsthand the courage, the commitment, and the daily risk of life and limb by my fellow comrades in arms, I will not have a good reason to ever feel arrogant. On the contrary, I only have reason to feel humbled that there are so many service members who live and embody the sacrifice that swearing to defend the U.S. Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic, entails. Time after time after time, I watched military service members sacrifice their own desires and well-being in order to help others, even in order to help me. With our lives on the line, I experienced service members of the United States Army of different politics than me, different religions, different races, different economic backgrounds, different upbringings, different temperaments and personalities, self-sacrificially act for my benefit and my protection. And this is why I love them. To those of my brothers and sisters who served with me in Iraq, I can only say thank you. I will never forget you. And serving our country by your side was one of the greatest privileges and honors that I have ever been given. Third, I am a husband, a father, a son, a grandson, a brother, a nephew, an uncle, a cousin, and a friend. This doesn't only mean that family and friendship is very important to me. It doesn't only mean that I agree with Edmund Burke when he argued that to be attached to the subdivision, to love the little platoon we belong to in society, is the first principle of public affections. It is the first link in the series by which we proceed towards the love of our country. And it doesn't only mean that I hold duties and obligations to my wife, my son, and my family, although I certainly do. In addition to all that, it is worth knowing that my relationship with my wife, my son, my parents, my brothers, my family, my friends, to those closest to me, is what defines me. It makes me who I am. To be a human being is to be a relational being. There is strength, health, stability, and goodness to not having your identity being primarily focused on your own self-enclosed selfhood and self-focused solipsistic definitions or self-actualization, focusing primarily on finding yourself or doing what's best for you and for yourself, rather than living as an atomized, individual, private self, with my own private, personal activities of self-fulfillment. The essence of who I am is relational. I believe this is a fundamental part of what makes us human. I believe that this is at the root of who we are. And I believe that the law, at its very best, services, recognizes, affirms, promotes, protects, and manifests this truth. Alistair McIntyre wrote, "If I am to flourish to the full extent that is possible for a human being, then my whole life has to be of a certain kind, one in which I not only engage in and achieve some measure of success in the activities of an independent, practical reasoner, but also receive and have a reasonable expectation of receiving the attentive care needed when I am very young, old and ill, or injured. So each of us achieves our good only if and insofar as others make our good their good by helping us through periods of disability to become ourselves the kind of human being through acquisition and exercise of the virtues who makes the good of others her or his good. And this is not because we have calculated that only if we help others will they help us in some trading of advantage for advantage. That would be the kind of human being who consults the good of others only because and insofar as it is to her or his good to do so. A very different kind of human being, one deficient in the virtues. For to participate in this network of relationships of giving and receiving as the virtues require, I have to understand that what I am called upon to give may be quite disproportionate to what I have received, and that those to whom I am called upon to give may well be those from whom I shall receive nothing. And I also have to understand that the care that I give to others has to be in an important way unconditional, since the measure of what is required of me is determined in key part, even if not only, by their needs. The individual, in order not just to pursue, but even to define her or his good in concrete terms, has first to recognize the goods of the community as goods that she or he must make their own. The good of my wife, of my children, of my parents, of my siblings, of my friends, and of my fellow citizens, my relationships with those whom I love, that is what defines me. If I truly love my wife, I will make her good mine. If I truly love my son, I will make his good my good. I'll admit to everyone that I screw this up on a regular basis, not even counting the far too many times when I have been intentionally selfish. I have learned that I am far too prone to unintentionally, thoughtlessly, neglecting the good of those I love through inattention, or through not taking the time and intentional effort to learn what I am required to in order to love them more deeply and more practically. But, no matter what, I have made a lifelong commitment to this and to my family, and I am determined to pursue the good of those I love constantly, continually, doggedly, without ever stopping and without any regard to any personal benefits I may or may not receive from doing so, without any conditions, and without any regard for how variably they may or may not react or treat me or respond to me from day to day. This commitment and resolve towards those I love is not particularly admirable. It does not arise from freely chosen social contracts. Instead, it is simply what a husband and a father ought to do. These are really two illustrations. Illustration number one, I do not personally merit the grace of the fact that a good and beautiful woman married me. Yes, she does appear to be one of the only remaining 10 or so people on the planet who actually read and write poetry because they want to, and that attracts me. Yes, my better half is the kind of woman capable of spending multiple hours at one sitting, reading, discussing, and thinking deeply through the dialogues of Plato, and enjoying it. That is one of the many reasons I love her. But my wife is not simply an aggregate collection of pleasing characteristics, traits, and benefits that attract me. That is not why I love her. I love her for her own intrinsic good. I love her because I take great joy in her, in who she is, in what she loves, in what she takes joy in. All my plans, all my hopes, all my dreams, all my loves include and involve my wife. This is a relationship being a husband that defines who I am as a person, and it has nothing to do with my self-identity. Marriage is a reality. It forms and shapes those who enter into it. It requires things of us. It makes us, for better or worse, who we are and who we become. It is not just a matter of personal preference or self-interest. It is not a transaction or an exchange of services. These are truths that our law should take into account. Illustration number 2. In June of 2023, we were given the great blessing of the birth of our son, William. Now at 2 years, 4 months, he is keeping our hands full, reaching up on tables and countertops, climbing up the furniture, and running into the street. He already speaks to me in full sentences and makes requests and communicates his thinking with deep feeling. Now, I work long and hard hours as an attorney, but if there's one thing I have never earned, and I certainly do not deserve, it is the sheer joy with which my 2-year-old son welcomes me when I come home. I've never experienced being the cause of joy, smiles, and laughter quite like that before, and essentially, I'm unworthy of being given and responsible for what amounts to a sacred trust. However, as a father, loving my son does not mean that I love him for what he can do for me. Pleasure and utility are not the basis of our relationship. William is his own separate and individual being, and he will have specific goods that are unique to him as a person. As a relatively new father, I am interested in the following questions. What does it mean to provide your children with the best possible education available? That means education at home as well as education in school, doesn't it? What does it mean to protect and provide for your children in a way that does not soften or weaken them, but that trains them to be strong, self-reliant, and motivated with an ethos that includes drive, hard work, intelligence, and learning? How do I give my son opportunities to excel while instilling in him a strong value, both for things earned and for things given? Why do so many successful people fail utterly as parents? Why do so many people build wealth, of whatever kind, that is simply lost again in just a couple generations? What would it mean for my son if I were to teach him not only how to embody a strong work ethic and a value for the most important things in life, but how to effectively teach his own children the very same thing, including how to teach their children the same thing? What does it mean to build wealth, financially, intellectually, spiritually, if we are building it not just for ourselves or for some supposed leisured retirement, but for multiple generations who will be accomplishing specific work and advancing specific causes moving forward into the future? How do you instill a purpose, drive, intellectual appetite, love of life, kindness, telos in your children without controlling them or giving them a shadow from which they need to escape? Being a parent involves having a relationship that defines what kind of person you are. This goes to the very root of who you are and what things take priority and merit your time. Being a father means not just that I'm asking these questions. It means that these questions are not just theoretical. How I answer them will shape and form the lives of others for decades to come. This means that I, right along with every parent, has a profound responsibility and a set of sacred obligations, which, even if unasked or unwished for, belongs to the reality of being a parent. This part of who I am profoundly affects my legal practice and family law. To be continued.